53 days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Singer, I cut your mics. 53 days till Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Full Screen Attack. I am your host, Vanessa Guerrero, and this is Attack of the Show's staff picks for the internet streaming library that is now our modern-day video store.
Love it.
Joining me today, very excited to talk to you both, my Fresh Ink co-host and fellow Attack of the Show producer, Bcomp.
Hi.
And joining us from Xplay, Jurado.
Hi.
Thank you so much, both of you. You're both people that I yell about movies at in the office.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. As soon as I saw you guys were doing a movie show, I was like, I need to get on that.
I've been wanting to talk to you about movies since I heard you say the words Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning in the office. And then I poked my head up like a weird little action movie meerkat and was just like, did I just find out we're friends?
Well, I mean, we're talking about sequels today, but arguably those are some of the greatest sequels.
Some of the best ones in that lineup because it's better than the first several movies.
Yeah, by an alarming amount. Just went harder than it had to.
It went harder than it had to. It was fantastic. We're not talking about Universal Soldier.
No.
Although you can find an hour of me talking about it on the internet and crying. I cried about a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. But today we're talking about specifically sequels. And one of the reasons I'm excited to have the two of you talk about it is we've discussed this before, but sequels can take many shapes and many forms in terms of what they can become, whether it be shameless cash grabs, continuations of a story that are essentially just part twos, wild swings, or something completely different.
100%. It really is such a great, like, what if we go this way? What if we do that? What if we do this?
Yeah.
You know? I love sequels, actually.
What are your favorite kinds of sequels?
The ones that like really continue the arcs of the characters, like that feel like they need to exist, are ones that you're like, this shouldn't have had a sequel, but they justify being a sequel. Like, that's why I picked my movie today.
Exactly. Or all of the John Wick movies.
All the John Wick movies, literally. Yeah, those tend to be mine. That just follow a good character story.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons, and this is a little off topic, but it's one of the reasons I do like what's being done in television lately is because television shows have essentially just become long movies that allows us to get into the characters, allows us to get into the story.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about sequels originally. It was like, oh, we get to stay in that world longer. We get to stay with those characters longer, you know, and see more adventure.
Well, and a thing most people don't really think about is that early sequels, one of the reasons they were an advent is because we did not have home media.
Nope.
It wasn't something that you can take home. There wasn't rental services, you know, when a lot of the early blockbusters, I mean, especially like the first one, Jaws. Was out. Yeah. So sequels were often the only way you can revisit a universe because it's not like you're going to see a rescreening anytime soon, and it's not like you're going to be able to take that piece of media that goes home with you. So a lot of early sequels were literally the same movie twice if they could get away with it. Yeah. Just because that was the only way you can revisit that universe. And as home media started to become a thing, as reruns started to become a thing, you started seeing sequels that were that episodic continuation or sometimes like big deviations.
Yeah, you really see that with like Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back is a great example, or a movie that we're not going to like talk about today, but like should be discussed. Terminator 2, Aliens, both franchises that most people think that the sequel actually eclipses the thing that came before it.
I would definitely make those arguments.
I would also throw in Blade Runner 2049.
Oh my God, yes.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to be that guy. I like it better than the original Blade Runner.
Same.
I think the first one is very slowly plotted, while very beautiful. It's just very slowly paced, and
that's why there's like 40 million cuts of it.
That's true. I literally have like the 5 like different cuts of that movie.
I think the first Blade Runner felt so special because it was such a unique world, and nothing like that had really been replicated since. And then Blade Runner 2049 took that world, gave you the same visual splendor, but a much better story, a much more enjoyable arc.
Yeah.
I know there's some criticisms of the way the movie handles women, which are all valid, but I mean, you know.
No movie is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a giant horror movie fan, and horror movies aren't a stranger to like misogyny in many forms, but also it's the most speaking roles for women that are offered. Like, if you look at an actual percentage of women that can talk in a movie, horror is like, if not number one, close to it.
Yeah.
So like, you take what you can get. But I wanted to get right into your pick for a streaming sequel because this is one of my all-time favorite movies. You can watch it on Pluto TV. Why don't you let us know what your pick is and why you picked it?
The Raid 2, because it just So I remember seeing the first Raid and being blown away, and then looking at how much they spent on that movie, and then being even more blown away. And then the Raid 2 is like not that much more pricey than the Raid 1, but it blows up the world in such an interesting way. I think the story justifies, continuing Ron Mazarek, like going underground or undercover, I should say. And it just, I didn't think you could do better action than the first Raid, and then the Raid 2 told me to just shut the fuck up.
It let you know that it can actually escalate it and elevate it. Have you seen the show that the director Gareth Evans worked on, Gangs of London?
I've seen some of the fight scenes and I've been like, oh my God.
The fight scenes are phenomenal. If you haven't watched a Gareth Evans movie before, he did Raid 2, Gangs of London. Fantastic fight choreography. Both the Raid and Raid 2 stars Iko Uwais, who I'm trying to think of some current American movies that he might have done, but there is an actress in the Raid 2 in which Hammer Girl, Julia Stell,
yes,
who I adore. That is one of her fighting debuts. She is not a on-screen fighter by trade.
No.
She started out as a dancer.
What?
Right?
Because In the Night Comes for Us.
In the Night Comes for Us, I made Bcomp watch that scene when we started being friends.
Yeah.
In the Night Comes for Us, she carries all of her own action scenes. And actually, for Night Comes for Us fans, and speaking of sequels, there is a sequel coming to The Night Comes for Us that is about that character, and it's called Night of the Operator.
And I cannot wait to watch it, because that's what I wanted after seeing that movie.
Yeah. The Raid is locking down sequels that we actually want to see by expanding on those universes and adding characters. Bcomp, have you seen either?
I've seen the first Raid. I actually made the mistake of watching the Raid and watching Judge Dredd the same weekend.
Oh.
And I was like, it's the same movie.
Yes, it
but
is.
But in totally different ways. Both of them excellent for different reasons.
Yeah.
I absolutely love both of them.
I was one of those people when I saw the trailer for Dredd, and I was like, that's just the Raid. And then I saw Dredd, and I was like, it was, but damn, did it go hard.
Yeah.
It went so hard. And
that's real quick. That's a movie that needed a fucking sequel.
Yeah.
Dredd?
Yes,
absolutely. I feel like the story was just getting started towards the end of the movie, and not necessarily in like a bad way.
No.
It didn't feel like anything. Like, it didn't feel like there weren't any loose ends.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I want out of a sequel, in that I want more of this universe,
more of this world.
Like, we're going to go on many tangents, but there's so many movies in which, like, I truly, in my heart of hearts, would do anything for a sequel for, because of how bad I want to go back to those worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, Carl Urban's just killing it. You're also drawing from decades of Judge Dredd comics that you can pull from that are some of the best writers and artists coming out of the UK with the 2000 AD and all that. But going back to the Raid, I have not seen the sequel, but if you're saying it is as hard as you're saying it is, well, I guess I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Yeah, man. It just takes everything the first one did and cranks it to 11. It has one of the best car chases I've ever seen in a movie.
Oh my God, that car chase.
Yeah.
I don't even know how they shot it.
I know. Every fight is basically what would be the big set piece in another movie. There's like 5 of those in the Raid 2.
Yeah, it's anything that's basically just like a Mortal Kombat skin on a thing. Anything that's just like, here's a tower, you have to go up, you have to go down. Automatically, I'm in, I'm sold. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm here for it. I love when something feels like a video game and there's a very characterized villain through it. And I feel like action movies are maybe one of the easiest ones to do sequels for, because we're also not as married to plot. To where it's like, just show me more of Guy punching.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to see this guy beating some people up.
And speaking of a guy beating some people up, Bcomp, you're defending your pick today hard. I like your pick, but you've had to defend it before.
Okay, so Thor: The Dark World.
I watched Joe
Bro.
It's like, how do I get through?
I might just need to go.
It's like, why the Hobbit trilogy is better. No. In all seriousness, Predator 2. I am a big Predator stan. I absolutely love the first film, but a lot of people poo-poo on the second one, and they are missing out on what is arguably one of the best follow-ups to that film. I mean, it really is. Essentially, the way I look at it is Lethal Weapon versus the Predator. I don't know. Have you ever had a chance to see it?
Yeah, so I watched it. I watched all your guys' picks before this.
Oh my God, you're the most studious guest we've had in full screen. Good to know.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed Predator 2 a lot. I was surprised at like the sort of vitriol around it, or just the general reputation it has.
Well, it's because what happened was when it came out, again, it kind of fell into that thing of like where, hey, we're going to do a smaller budget because we know we're going to get like probably the same audience back in, make it for a smaller budget and go. They couldn't get Arnold back because, there was just due to budgetary concerns. The director had also left that he went on to do Die Hard. It was John McTiernan. So like they couldn't get back. So they're like, well, let's just do this thing. It basically is it's the urban jungle, instead of rehashing, hey, here's another jungle fight, let's set it in the city. And now we've got Danny Glover as our lead character, which is also an era of like cinema where you don't see the main character as a black guy. You know what I mean? He's usually like a second banana. Or
Danny Glover usually was slated or cast as the second banana when that is a man that can carry a franchise very easily on his shoulders.
Absolutely carried that movie. And not only that, but the rest of the cast of the characters, with the exception of Bill Paxton, who's essentially just channeling the Hicks character from Aliens.
Bill Paxton.
You've got Ruben Blades as like the number 2, and then you also have Mary Conchita Alonso as the number 3. So it's like you have this great diverse squad of cops that are trying to stop the Predator. Well, and they don't know because it's almost like a murder mystery. We know what the Predator is. They don't know, and they're just stumbling through this like, what the heck is going on? I love it because the action sequences are great. I love that it expands the mythology of the Predator world. Not only do we get like more of like just more weapons, like the net gun and the spear and the blade and all this. There's all that, but we also get just like more of a background to the Predator itself.
Yeah.
For example, there's a great scene where he's in a cemetery and a kid runs up with a plastic gun. Instantly, it's like, oh crap! Throw my laser on that, and he's like, oh, it's a kid. I can't kill it. Puts it on the gun, realizes the gun's just a piece of plastic.
Oh my god!
It's just like those little moments like that where it fleshes out the Predator. There's such great action sequences. Again, like there's one of my favorite scenes. I don't want to spoil it if anybody's watching, but there's an entire subway sequence where the subway sequence is insane. Where literally Predator drops in on a bunch of gang members and a bunch of commuters who are all carrying guns and proceeds to just slaughter his way through them. And Bill Paxton, to keep everyone safe, draws the Predator away and goes out in the most heroic way possible to the point where he empties all of his gun, every single clip, and he's like, picks up a knife, he's like, all right, we're going for it. Ends.
I thought that sequence was the real standout.
Yeah.
I thought some of the editing was a little like very, very early 90s.
It is.
But for me, this just scratched a certain aesthetic spot for me because I love kind of that grimy, decrepit, near future, not quite future.
Yeah, it was like because the movie came out in 1990. It's set in 1997. Temperatures are 109, which is something we just went through recently.
Yeah. In LA.
And it's like, you've got the Colombians and the Jamaicans at war with one another, and so like it's just like conflict and violence and all of that going on. There's such great visuals in the film. There's a great scene where Danny Glover goes to the Jamaicans like, hey, I need some info about what's killing us. He kind of gets what he needs. As he leaves, you just see the Predator come down like full force, landing in a puddle of water, and you see, his invisible skin kind of like, turn off because of the water. And so you see his reflection just as he's like stomping through puddles. And the Jamaican dude pulls out a sword, and you don't get to see the fight, but it's such a great smash cut.
Yeah. To where you fill in the blanks in your head because they give you enough to go with.
There's so much awesomeness in it. And, like I said, Danny Glover is not a muscle-bound Arnold Schwarzenegger type. He is the everyman. And not only that, like when he goes in to finally take the Predator out, the actual sequence it's all almost in like linear time. Yeah. And I love that. I love that movie so much.
Predator 2 is streaming on Hulu, by the way. Yep. The thing that I really love about both of your picks, Predator 2 and The Raid 2, is when a director understands that, like, I got the audience to buy this for this amount of time. Yeah. They whether it be they suspended belief or they were invested or whatever it may be, but for 90 minutes or so, they had them the first time around. Yeah. And many a sequel often just does the same thing twice because people are sometimes fine with that. Yeah. But oftentimes when it's like studios be damned, take that big risk, take that big swing, up that ante. Yeah. Most people are on board for that.
Yeah. I thought Predator 2 was pretty cheeky with the opening when like
it starts on Griffith Park and then it kind of goes up to the city. Like I said, it was just a lot of those little nods here. Yeah. Like the explosions were great, the action is great. I mean, even the little, like I said, the world building. Not only do we get like the great scene where one of the detectives, the Predator picks her up, realizes that she's pregnant, and like lets her go because that's not an honorable kill. We get that hinted to in the first Predator film.
That they have a code.
Yeah, they do have a code, and that continues on through the film when Danny Glover gets on the actual ship. He takes the Predator out. All of them can come out and like, oh, he's like, all right, who's next? And they respect him enough. They're like, all right, you beat this guy.
Yeah,
you're allowed to go. We also get the alien skull there, which is great for the Xenomorph skull. But also, he gets a trophy. And again, that little moment of getting that little flintlock, which ties into the Prey film, is like that moment of like, yeah, there was respect. And they do have a code. Yeah. And that's what was so great about it.
I think maybe some of the vitriol that it received is you can kind of watch this thing happen with movie watching where sequels started receiving like amounts of speculation and expectation that if it didn't meet exactly what an audience goer thought it was going to be, they kind of turn against it. Yeah. It's kind of why, we'll get into it later, I picked the movie that I picked for today. But you can kind of see the shift when sequels, no matter what they became, started having to meet like an audience speculative expectation. Yeah. And when it doesn't meet that, it's this movie is bad because it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Which I thought was bonkers at this one because I think it has a much stronger opening. Yeah. One, like it just starts at 100 and doesn't stop.
It does not stop. It's all gas, no break, you know? No, I absolutely love it.
Spilled water all over this brand new table, and I'm not actually wiping it. I'm actually just smearing it. Smearing it everywhere. So I'm just going to pretend that I didn't just get water everywhere and get into my pick. You have a point.
No, please.
I picked the movie that I picked because it is literally a movie about sequels and the nature of making sequels, and it has kind of a nihilistic approach to it, and I really love it, and that is Gremlins 2: The New Batch. Thank you. To Crap Lord Bastard Man, who sent me that VHS in the mail. It is currently on my desk. I adore this movie. When was around the first time the two of you saw Gremlins 2?
So I saw Gremlins, I think, in the theater, which, because I think back then it was rated PG.
Interestingly enough, so because it ends in a gremlin blowjob.
So I'm talking about Gremlins 1. So I have
okay.
So Gremlins was PG, and that's what eventually I think it was not Raiders, but
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom led to the PG-13. It's like even though there's a gremlin literally exploded in a microwave at one point. So I actually never got a chance to see it because my parents were like, no, you're not seeing the sequel to Gremlins. They were expecting
something.
Yeah, so it was. I want to say in my adulthood when I finally got around to going and watching that.
I actually saw Gremlins 2 before I saw Gremlins because it was just on TV.
That's hilarious order.
Yeah, and I love Gremlins 2. I love Gremlins 2 more than Gremlins 1.
Same.
Because it's the first one I saw. But even as an adult, I think it's just a more interesting movie.
Yeah.
It's Joe Dante just making a live-action Looney Tune for an hour and a half, and I love it.
That's a great description.
That is exactly what I love about that movie. Joe Dante initially, the director of Gremlins, did not want to do a sequel for the reasons that we mentioned before, where he was just like, it feels like a cash grab. Yep. I already told the story that I want to tell. I don't know if I need to go back for it a second time. And then the second time around, he takes a lot of inspiration from like that Chuck Jones era of Looney Tunes. It's even like an interruption in the middle of the movie, although depending on what media you're watching it on, it's either Looney Tunes or John Wayne or Hulk Hogan, depending, because there's a lot of fourth wall breaking.
Hulk Hogan for me.
You have the Hulk Hogan one. I have the Looney Tunes one.
I have the Hulk Hogan one.
And then I think I have a John Wayne one somewhere. But one of the things I really enjoy about this is that Joe Dante says everything that he wants to say with his whole chest about what he believes about the nature of sequels and telling a story twice over in this. And he lampoons it so much that he creates a new story. He creates a new universe with new rules while shitting on this other idea and this premise, and it really escalates a lot of the chaos, because before it felt like a lighthearted, almost holiday time creature feature, and this is just a full-on creature feature that every few seconds is telling you as the audience, we are Looney Tunes and we think it's bull that we have to be here in the first place. And then it's delightful from beginning to end, and it ends with a gremlin beeger.
I think
you do.
Yeah, as you do.
If you don't end on that, then what are you doing?
And is that water? Is that food? Is that technically sunlight because of a certain amount of protein? I don't know. I actually have 6 pages of research about this, and I asked a scientist about it once, and she asked me to stop calling her.
I think I think my love of Gremlins 2 explains why I enjoyed The Matrix Resurrections, because it's a sequel that's angry about being a sequel.
Yeah.
I would love you to elaborate on this because this is fascinating. I never tied the two together, and I think it actually makes me appreciate Resurrections more.
Well, just because the opening hour is literally Lana Wachowski just like, it's fucking bullshit, I have to be here. We didn't need to make a fourth one.
Warner Brothers wanted us to do this.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's like, you know what? We're not going to make another Matrix. I'm going to make a love story set in the Matrix. And I could get jiggy with that.
Yeah.
Because I think the first three said everything that needed to be said.
And the video game.
And the video game
said a lot.
Yeah, so it's like, what else would you do?
Yeah, they've been doing exactly what they wanted to do with Sense8.
Yeah.
The Matrix Resurrections was a lot of just like, remember Sense8?
So like any sequel that's a director just like, I don't want to be here, but I have to be, so I'm just going to go bonkers while also flipping off the people paying me to do this.
Exactly. And also, App Steve in the comments said Key and Peele sketch on Gremlins 2 development.
Oh,
is
yes.
hilarious. It is one of my all-time favorite sketches because of that. The entire pitch meeting, it's one of those things where if you like repeat it to another person, they don't know that you're talking about an actual thing that became a movie that people put money into. It makes everything that we do just kind of seem like we're weird toddlers babbling about each other, and then we put a camera in front of it.
Yeah.
The tracks.
I also saw someone in the chat say, no discussion about Trolls 2. Do you mean Trolls 2 or Troll 2? Because those are two very different teams.
Troll 2 is, that's a choice.
Yeah.
Oh God, what's the one that was spelled backwards?
That's a Noblin. Noblin.
Noblin. I was trying to remember specifically what that line was. I have affection for that movie in terms of just it being like a B movie. It's the thing that you watch when you want to like mystery science with your friends.
Well, we talked a little bit about like B movies the other day. Like when people purposely try to make a B movie, it's bad. But when people are trying to make an earnest film that becomes a B movie, that's
when you enjoy
that's the thing. Because you can't replicate that. I feel like if you go into it trying to make a bad movie, it feels a bit more cynical.
It is.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you really went out there and believed it, like said it with your chest and it didn't work, like you can see that earnestness in there. So it's like, oh, they tried.
We'll watch a Birdemic.
Yeah.
The Room,
versus like a Sharknado in which it's some people in a room that figured out a bad movie algorithm and it just doesn't have that behind it. And it's interesting because like sometimes I like cynical. Like Gremlins 2 is an extremely cynical movie, but it knows that it is and it's telling you that it is.
Yes.
Versus again, something like a Sharknado where we're a bunch of guys in a room that figured out the math to a B movie, and this is something that we can maybe make some cash off of, versus a guy that's like, I think that this is going to be my like piece of art, and then it's, oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. Hi, Dougie.
Hi, Dougie. Say that to my cats every single day when I get home. Hi, Dougie.
Tell me apart, Lisa.
Oh, Kirby in chat pointed out Wrong Turn to another movie I adore, and hello, friend of the show, Joe Lynch.
Nice.
So
I think he's an old G4 alum, I believe.
He's an old G4 alum that I definitely want to do a couple of his movies on here in addition to Wrong Turn 2. I would love to do Mayhem, which is a movie he did with Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving before they were like big household names that are fantastic. So let's get into the movie we all watched together for this one. I picked it because similar to Predator 2, it's had, I think, a little bit more vitriol than it deserved. While it is an imperfect sequel, it takes big swings and I think did things for a franchise that I wish had been done instead of what is currently done. Yeah. And you probably had a tease of it from the intro that we sang together, but I picked Halloween 3 Season of the Witch for the sequel, threequel in this case, that we all watched together. First watch for you. I know you watched it before, but would love to hear both your initial thoughts.
So when I watched it as a kid, I just remember it always come on TV, and I would turn the channel. I would like just flip back and forth because I was waiting for Michael Myers to show up.
You and the rest of America.
So it wasn't until I was much older that I realized, oh, he's not in this at all. So this was my first time really watching it like straight through. I had a lot of fun with this. I thought it was like a really dark thriller.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much a horror movie.
It had horror notes.
Yeah, but I think the core concept of like a man using a bunch of money to do something horrific to like society on the whole on such a huge scale is so scary that some of the hokier elements kind of annoyed me. I was like, oh, you were right there. You were right there. We did not need these androids. Like, it would have been much scarier.
Cochrane was evil enough.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been much scarier if they were just people who were paid to just...
They were loyalists or, like, cultists or whatever. Interesting.
Because, it had those mythical elements, and, like... Halloween already like skids into Cult of Thorn at some point that we're not that far from Cult anyway. So I feel like it would have been an element that worked there. And I know Deborah Hill, one of the producers and one of the original writers for Halloween with John Carpenter, she is the reason why Laurie Strode is Laurie Strode. She really wanted to include some of those like futuristic meets spiritual elements, but I also kind of wish that we veered closer on like some of the evil elements of it.
I was gonna say it's one of the things I actually really did like about it was that marriage of like sci-fi and horror or fantasy, I guess, for lack of a better word, because definitely you're going back into sort of the Halloween, the origins of Halloween, which I always thought was pronounced Samhain, but I guess it's
Samhain.
Yeah,
the only reason I know it is because of Glenn Danzig.
See, the only reason I know it's the other way is because I used to watch the Ghostbusters cartoon. And they call him Sam Hain all the time. That's how it is in my head.
It's used sometimes. Like for the Trick or Treat franchise, they call him Sam because he's like the spirit of Halloween.
Yeah.
So it's something that I've heard like pronounced both ways. But the only reason I know someone is both because of this movie and a Glenn Danzig song.
That's awesome. Well, that all said, like I liked that. Like I said, I like that marriage of like taking those kind of fantastical elements and then adding them into sort of like this weird science fiction, almost like, as I was telling you earlier this morning, I feel like it's like almost like a They Live meets the X-Files.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very like Monster of a Week episodic element to it.
I enjoyed it. I kind of to the Predator point, like it's one of those things where it's like I don't think it's like a good movie, but I think it's an awesome movie. If that makes sense.
Yes. We talked about this last time when we all watched The Princess, and I feel like a lot of like movie review shows, write-ups, pieces of media don't really know how to include things that exist in that middle space anymore. Yeah. It's either it's the best thing I've ever seen or it's absolute dog shit, bury it. I can't believe it even exists. And there isn't really room for that, like, it's a Tuesday, I watched it, and this was, great, and it entertained me, and I wouldn't watch it again, but I had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, exactly that.
Yeah, and like, it's why I feel like the conversation about Halloween 3 is interesting, because you have the people that are like, this is the worst thing that ever happened in the franchise. It's the absolute worst ones that ever exist. You have the people that there are literal fan groups on Facebook for this movie that are like, this is the absolute best in the entry. And it's again that there isn't really that middle ground that exists for it. And I get why people champion for it, because similar to Predator 2 and a lot of other things, there are pieces of media that we feel like when we talk about it being underrated didn't get the credit or the due that it deserved. And Halloween 3 had a lot of things going up against it. The fact that the second movie starts like 10 minutes after the first one, and they went into production rather quickly, when initially John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wanted the Halloween franchise to be an anthology.
Which, that would have been phenomenal.
If this was Halloween 2, I think it would have had a much better reception.
If this was the second movie, I think you're absolutely correct. That second movie prepared people for something different. Yeah. If this was the immediate follow-up, that I feel like that's how it would be able to like continue into something that I would have enjoyed, because I feel like especially when you have a Halloween movie that is a horror movie, anthology tends to work so well. We associate Halloween with like storytelling, ghost stories, that sort of deal. Yeah. It's why a Creep Show works so well. It's why Trick or Treat is such a beloved movie for that time. Yeah. And I think I would have preferred that than the expanding on the lore on the whole Michael Myers thing that we get, where we just keep retconning and adding more to what works when very little is known about him.
Well, 2 points to that. Like, number one, the Halloween franchise has become like a choose your own adventure. I mean, if you really think about it, like, because you have the initial Mike Myers storyline that kind of continues through 1, 2, then 4, 5, and 6. Then there was like the spin-off, which was H2O and Resurrection and all that. Yeah. Then you have the the Rob Zombie ones. And then you have another split off where like one didn't, or only one happened, and it's like, which is the current ones right now. Yeah. But what I was going to say, what I like also about the anthology stuff is it allows you to do, I wouldn't say darker endings, but you can do almost any ending at the end. Like this this film ends not on a bleaker note, but like
it's pretty.
It's pretty bleak.
But it's like does it happen? Does the top fall over? And, it's the Inception ending in that sense. Like, does it happen or does it not? We don't know. Whereas, like, when you have to do a story, like a serialized story, a la Halloween, it's like, nope, you got to make sure that so and so stays alive, and somehow we have a way to bring that character back, and blah 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 blah. Whereas, like, this is like, nope, it's up to interpretation.
I'm actually interested to hear everybody's interpretations on how this movie ended. We're talking Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I personally feel like he failed.
He what?
He failed.
Yeah.
I think he failed. So let's really quickly tell you what it's about, because some of you haven't seen Halloween 3. I see some H2O fans out there, and we are kin. I do love some of the extended Halloween moments because we get to see Busta Rhymes tell Michael Myers to go away. Halloween 3 is a completely separate movie from the Halloween universe. It was intended for the entire franchise to be an anthology, and in this one, we have a doctor who has a patient come in clutching a mask from a devious company called Silver Shamrock. Tommy Lee Wallace really makes us listen to that theme over and over again, so we hate it as much as Tom Atkins' character does.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins is a dude from Night of the Creeps, The Fog. You've seen him a lot. In this movie, you see a lot of his butt. Lethal Weapon. That was maybe my least favorite part in this entire mystery of this nefarious company making masks that makes children's heads turn into bugs that kill other people. I believed just about every piece of it, right down to we have pieces of Stonehenge that are causing these Celtic curses. I
love that.
I love those elements. I love those big swings. I really wish I didn't have to watch Tom Atkins bone down as much as he does.
There was so much. So much more than we needed.
We were texting each other that one of the things I like is that occasionally like a John Carpenter produced or written thing is like, this character, real dirtbag.
He's just a no redemption.
Yeah.
No redemption at all. Like, he's just on the phone with his ex-wife, just like, yeah, I'm not gonna see the kids.
Not only that, he pulls out a 6-pack of beers, like, yeah, I gotta go to a hotel. I don't know the name of it. Yeah.
He's gonna bang some mourning young girl whose father was literally crushed to death.
Yes.
In a hospital under his watch. I like that the movie implies several times that not only does he have a drinking problem, but he has definitely cheated on his ex-wife several times. With people that he works with.
Oh, yeah.
He is a very scummy man that is like going on this murder mystery with this young lady that he just met. And part of you is like, there's actually a comment in the Discord that I really liked from the person that sent me the Gremlins 2 Blu-ray. VHS. Crap Lord Bastard Man. I think part of the point, though I don't disagree with the fact that the banging is gross, is the nature of how suddenly and how intensely the character dives in to help and unravel the mystery. He's from what we are given, a drunk and less than present father, a workaholic, and this mystery runs into his life, and it's like a chance to prove himself. But he's a doctor, not a cop or a detective or anything else. He never had time to stop and think outside of his wang-dang diddly, but even then can sort of be brushed off as hitting horror tropes of being a bit of like a trauma bonding thing with him and that girl.
Yeah.
Maybe it was redemption. Maybe he just wanted to shirk responsibility.
Or he's just like, hey, that girl's hot.
Yeah. Why not hang out? Let's see what happens.
See where it goes. I don't want to sleep in the car or the floor. What do you suggest?
Oh, man. This was your first watch. What were some of your favorite sequences of this? And what were some moments in which you're like, that didn't really work for me? Some
of the stuff that did not work for me, like the subplot with the, I guess you needed it. The subplot with the coroner. Like, it's it's building up to something and it just ends. And we're like, oh, what?
It fizzles up because she keeps saying, like, there are no human remains. We know it's.
Oh, wait, what's this? And then, boom, done. It's like, well, how would she have known that's nothing different than a car?
I think that was mostly there for the drill kill.
Yeah, the drill kill. Overall, like, I thought it did work in terms of, like, the plotting and the moving forward and all that. I do agree with you. The dude's a dirtbag, and it's like, yeah, honey, I'm not gonna hang out with the kids. You need to keep. And he keeps calling her, like, it's like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, what is this guy's deal? And I think maybe it is that thing of beyond wanting to bone a girl, he's actually like, oh, maybe this is my way to become a better person, and I don't know.
Because clearly his kids are constantly disappointed by him.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also that other kid, too, with the other corporate family that came along with it. Like, giving the mom the fingers, like, don't go on the street.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Tommy Lee Wallace, the director of this movie, who later went on to direct the Tim Curry It that we all love.
Yeah.
really wanted you to dislike this kid before they obliterated him on screen.
I had no problem with that.
Like, he was really like, we want you to dislike him before we turn his head into bugs.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a bold moment. Killing the kid, just straight up showing it.
Couple 80s movies did that around that time. Maximum Overdrive was another one where they would take those big swings, and sometimes audiences were not on board, and other times you're just like, all right, I know what the stakes are.
I think I was with it, killing the kid, but like how the parents died, I was like,
I think I wanted more for them.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm not seeing how they're dead here, but okay.
Snake and bug.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how venomous are these snakes? Like, you're instantly dead after that bite. It looked like he just bit like his pants too.
Yeah. I will say one thing that did catch me is like the whole thing is about stopping the commercial before it goes out at 9:00. And now is that 9:00 East Coast, Central Standard Time?
That's the other thing, because they should have that sequence where they show all of the kids buying masks and wearing them as they march out to different states and cities.
Yeah, but it's like there's a time zone, like about 3 to 4 hour difference. I think it's 3 hours, but like, the various time zones. Like, so did he stop it in time for the West Coast, or were kids on the East Coast watching it at 12 o'clock at night? Like, what was the dealio,
Yeah. Also, like, how, when he was calling the networks at the end, they probably were just local networks. It wasn't like he was calling,
Let me get the president of NBC.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think in that case, it was mostly just him trying to save his kids.
Yeah.
Like, if he couldn't save everyone, he was trying to save his kids, because he couldn't get his wife to take the masks away. But also, if you were home with them, you could have taken the masks away. If you didn't pause the mystery when she hears, what's that? And then you go, let's keep going. I'm banging a 20-something-year-old. He could have at any point stopped it, but he got in his own way several times. I do think at the end that he absolutely failed, because once it gets to that orange...
Yeah, you're done. Well, that's the thing. It's like, and that's the other thing. It's also to that end, like, you don't get to call one number to stop 3 channels. You know what I mean? Like, you're calling all the various, like, I got to call ABC after this, NBC after this, Fox. I got to, WGN's next.
No, but
one thing that did also drive me is that how dirty they did. What was her name? The female person.
Ellie.
Yeah. Like, I was like, I know the twist was, she's suddenly an android. I'm like, that sucks. Like,
I wanted more for her.
Yeah.
She it feels like she was going to crack this case until she met this scummy doctor.
Yeah. It feels, I don't know. Some of the plotting was like a struggle for me towards the end, but I thought this was actually like a surprisingly fun movie to look at. I thought the cinematography was really good.
Oh, that's because that's my boy Dean
Gundy. Yeah, I love I love the opening credits, like just the ominous score, and then like the little VHS flashes. Like, I'm a sucker.
Oh, the scan lines. I love that. It's got that great John Carpenter score. Something that like people now in modern horror, whenever they're talking about like A24 horror, they're specifically talking about people aping that Carpenter scoring, except it doesn't have a melody, because surprise, John Carpenter scores actually have a melody. They're not just blah, 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 which most of his replicators try to do. But Bcomp, you said you had a reveal.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, this is probably going to piss off a lot of people. Like I said, I grew up in a very predominantly science fiction action household. We did not do slasher films. We did not do horror films, which was really shocking that I got to watch Predator and Alien and
all those movies.
Because like I think that in my parents' mind, it was like, oh no, there's a science fiction film.
Yeah.
They're not horror films, even though they, again, kind of blend the two genres. I have actually never seen any of the, well, with the exception of like H2O, like any of the Halloween films. I never got a chance to see Halloween.
Really?
Wait, so the only Halloween you've seen is Halloween H2O?
Yeah, and it was like, I started to watch Halloween. It was like, well, if I'm going to prep and watch Halloween 3, I should start watching. I know I've seen most, I know it all through osmosis and all of that. But I had never seen it. So I was like, well, and then I was like, halfway through, I'm like, I'm going to stop watching this because I want to see Halloween 3 just unencumbered with all the BS and all that lore or legacy. And it was like, oh, yeah, this is fine. This is great. I wish, I wish that they had almost been a little less successful with the first Halloween film, because then they could have gone on to do an anthology series. But because I think of the success of the first one. But yeah, I've never actually seen the other ones.
The second one is pretty fine. It's just fine. Yeah. It kind of ups the gore a little bit more, because by this point you have other slashers in the different states in their franchises in which that's what people want more. And then obviously eventually you get like Nightmare on Elm Street that like really has people wanting to watch some of these like intricate kills. So the second movie ups the violence a little bit. People forget, but the first one isn't as violent as they remember it being.
It's just scary.
It's just scary. It's just scary. It's just very tense. It's really funny because when Michael is initially first unmasked, you hear people talk about like his face is super mutilated and it's super messed up and I saw this and I saw this. And if you actually just take a still, it's nothing.
Interesting.
It's just an actor's face. But both like a lot of the cinematography that Dean Cundey uses that he later applies to Jurassic Park in terms of like showing doorknobs opening and paths of where somebody is going to flee from point A to point B and these like great POV shots. It's so much tension is created that people imprint something on Michael that isn't there. And that's why the first one is great. It's that we fill in the spots.
Well, and this kind of goes a little bit to comic book talk, and I don't want to get into it too much, but that's where I think the best stuff is that, you know, that space between the panels, you know, where your mind, you know, it's like where the hit is here and then bam, but it's that, you know, you see the first shot is here, the second shot is here, and you fill in the blank in the panel, kind of going back to Predator 2, you know, it's the King Willie fight where, you know, he pulls his sword out, cuts to his head being dragged, you know, through an alley. It's like, oh, what happened there? Well, man, it must have been awesome, and we fill in those gaps. I love that. I love that. You know, like it's almost like show don't tell, but don't show don't tell. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say watch the first one.
I'm going to. Like I said, I watched half of it, and I was like, oh, this is really good, and I was like, you know what? Let's stop. Let's pull back. Let's watch this one instead, and we'll go from there.
And then maybe just like avoid any of the brother sister
all that stuff. Should I watch the new stuff? 2018.
Just the 2018 one.
Just the 2018?
Just the 2018 one and pretend that's the only one that exists.
That's the only one that exists?
Yeah. Halloween Kills, right? Was the second one? Yeah, that was a lot of choices.
What about the zombie one, Rob Zombie one?
Watch the feature-length documentary about the making of.
Oh.
The feature-length documentary about the making of is actually really fun because Rob Zombie is clearly just like the biggest Halloween fan, and it's fun to like watch him react to these things. And that's the best part.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember Halloween 2. I never saw it, but I remember really strong reactions on the second Rob Zombie Halloween movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. He took some interesting creative licenses that I'm like, cool, glad you did that. You expanded on something that was like different from everything else. The execution is
a little less to be desired.
But I did enjoy the 2018 one because it's interesting. This really is the only franchise where you've got like the first version of the thing, which is like Laurie Strode is like the initial final girl. And now we are watching like what happens if you take that to like the fullest extent that it can, because most slashers kill off their final girls at least within the first few movies. So question for the both of you.
All right.
I usually have people give this a 1 out of 10. I'm thinking of something in the movie that we can use as a 1 out of 10 rating. Let's go 1 out of 10 Tom Atkins bare butts.
Now, is it a cheek, or is it two cheeks?
Two cheeks.
Two cheeks.
Two cheeks between 1 and 10, but it's his full butt, both cheeks.
Each star is a butt?
Each star is Tom Atkins' butt.
So gotcha. 2 cheeks is just 1 star then?
Yes.
So,
cool.
Okay.
Out of 10?
Out of 10.
I'd give it like a 7.
7 butts!
Yeah, 7 butts.
You know, that's actually about what I give it as well, because it makes me think of Halloween. I enjoy it. It feels like you said, an X-Files or a Monster of a Week thing. It's visually very striking with the color palettes that it has.
The shot I remember the shot I liked the most was after the drill kill, when the android walks away and it just lingers on the body, and you hear like the soft rock like, playing on the speakers. Like it just was such like a chilling scene. Like it struck that horror balance really well. Just because it wasn't a slasher doesn't mean it wasn't a good thriller.
Exactly. Bcomp?
I'm going to say 15 cheeks, so that's 7.5.
Okay, it took me a second to do the butt math on that one, but 7.5 is a good one.
Yeah, I'd say 7.5 because, like I said, I'm not attached to the franchise. I don't really, care one way or the other. I enjoyed it for what it was. Yes, there's some problems. Again, a movie doesn't have to be good to be awesome or be good to be fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it can be a bad movie and still be fun. And I enjoyed it. Like it was like, It hit all the right notes.
I absolutely stand behind it can be a bad movie and it can be fun. Also, !Q if you want to send in any questions for me, Joe, and Bcomp. I'm a defender of just the animation part of Osmosis Jones.
I mean, listen, I agree.
Just the animation part.
As someone who was 8 when it came out, yeah.
Lawrence Fishburne didn't have to go that hard.
Really didn't.
He didn't have to commit that hard, but he decided that he was going to give an apex performance.
Larry Fishburne.
Larry Fishburne. You can always count on that man.
You got Ozzy and Drix out of it. Like it was a worthwhile endeavor.
It was a worthwhile endeavor. We had a great soundtrack.
Yeah, a way too good soundtrack.
Isn't that funny how some of those films like from the 90s have, because it was in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Judgment Day.
Yeah. Well, that like the Batman and Robin or the Batman Forever soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing slaps.
That
was way too hard.
Like no reason that should have been that good.
Truly.
So before we get into questions, I want to get into a segment that I love that we've been doing called Let's Get Physical, in which I beg all of you at home to own a piece of physical media that I think should take up room in your home, both for the reasons of physical media comes with a bunch of great extras, but also do the stuff that we see with HBO Max. It's very easy for something to suddenly go away and become very hard to stream. You both are some of the first folks that I've had on here that are big collectors of physical media.
100%.
Joe, I'll start with you. Why do you collect physical media?
Well, if I like something, I just want to be able to watch it when I want to watch it. I love movies. I love being able to just go back, rewatch movies, pick up new things, and you never know. Like you said, the HBO Max, when something you love is just gonna completely be upended, or not easily available. And I just like having a collection. It's easier to put someone on something if you can just give it to them and be like, "Hey, watch this movie. It's great."
To all the reasons you just said. Number one, I mean, I'll be honest. One of the big reasons, if anybody's in my house, I have entire bookshelves full of graphic novels. If nothing else, it's just like a peacocking thing where I'm like, yeah, look at that. I love showing this off. You know what I mean? It really is like, look at that wall of stuff, and I love showing that off. That's one. Number two, you never know when the power is going to go out, when the internet's going to go out, when something's going to get lost from a streaming service. Too often, I've been like, it's on Netflix. I don't need this. X whatever the hell it is, like like The Office. I don't need that. Oh, well, it's gone from Netflix now. You can only watch it on Peacock, or So it's always just like good to have a physical for something you truly love. You should hold on to that. And then number three, yes, of course, the extras and bonus features is another reason to like hold on to those things. And like I said, I'm a collector. I like showing things off and like being able to your point. Hey, you don't know about She-Hulk? Let me pull this off the shelf. Bam, here you go.
So the piece of physical media that I am going to shout out today is a movie that came out pretty much at the beginning of the pandemic. So it didn't really get a chance to be seen. It's also not really streaming anywhere unless you have a service called Canopy, which is something that you can get through your local libraries. But I also think owning it is great because this is a gorgeous movie. And it is a movie from Japan called We Are Little Zombies. It is currently 38% off on Amazon, although you can also get it from their distributor Oscilloscope. And I don't know how to describe this movie because I haven't ever seen anything like it. It came out November 2020. It is a movie about 4 Japanese orphans that is a coming-of-age tale as they all like meet each other. It has a chiptune soundtrack.
Okay.
Its editing is kind of similar to like Scott Pilgrim, but it gets into like conversations about like mortality and like what life is, and it is absolutely bonkers, but extreme. It's so beautiful, and I think I personally have like an extra attachment to this movie because when the pandemic happened, I was so sad that I couldn't go see a movie. Like that was one of the things that I didn't realize I was going to mourn after not being able to do for a year as soon as it happened. R.I.P. ArcLight. Like I think a lot of people realized that like the communal movie watching experience was something that we were all missing, because something about sharing media and talking to your friends about a movie after you all saw it together, seeing somebody in the lobby and being like, can you believe that happened? Like, even for like Marvel movies have based experiences around an audience seeing something for the first time. Yeah. I will never forget the time I went to go see Get Out and the collective release of the audience when they see his best friend get out of that car instead. Like, there's certain things that you don't really realize you miss it until it's gone. And so for months, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. And Mission Tiki was one of the few places playing this movie at a drive-in, and I went to go see it. And so this was drive-in. I saw this movie in a drive-in with subtitles, and it was surprising. I was still able to read the subtitles.
Okay.
But it was my favorite movie of that year, both for like truly feeling like it saved me by providing me like some kind of solace in a very scary time, but also being a beautiful piece of art that's impossible to find anywhere. So it's called We Are Little Zombies. Highly recommend checking it out. And let me get into some of these chat questions. Speaking, this is from Twinny Poo. Speaking of Gareth Evans, what did you think of Apostle? I haven't seen it yet, but my boy Dan Stevens is in it, so I really want to.
He was the invitation, right? Or not the invitation, the guest.
He was the guest.
Oh my God,
he was also Legion.
He was Legion. That kid, well, I guess not a kid, but man, that guy, like, legit, like, why is he not
the guy?
The guy. I mean,
he's the character actor that looks like a leading man.
Yes, 100%. Like, the guest, like, blew my mind. That guy.
Was that Adam Wingard that did the guest?
Yes.
Shout out to Adam Wingard. I like that guy.
And fun fact, there's a Halloween 3 reference in the guest.
Oh yeah, aren't the masks?
It's the mask. Oh, yeah, it's the mask in the background in the homecoming or prom or whatever.
Are in that school haunted house scene that they have going on. Because a lot of genre dudes love to nod towards Halloween 3. And some of your questions aren't populating, but I did see one pop up that was for Bcomp, and that was, what other pieces of horror media that you feel like touchdowns that you haven't seen?
Oh, easy. Friday the 13th. I've not done those. Like I said, Halloween. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I remember seeing, like, trying to watch one of those when I was like 8 at my friend's house. We'd like rent it on VHS, and man, that scared the piss out of me. There's a lot of those, like a lot of the seminal horror films I have not seen. I've been trying to go back and rewatch them. I've also never seen The Lion King. I've heard that's a horror film. So
you haven't seen The Lion King?
No, I was in high school when that.
You have a child.
Well, when he's old enough, he'll watch it. He watches Peppa Pig right now. I'll watch it with him. I'm waiting for him to be old enough that I can sit down and watch Batman the Animated Series with him.
Yeah,
that's what I'm excited for. But no, like I also haven't seen, as a James Cameron fan, that's going to shock people, I haven't seen Titanic.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a surprisingly good movie. I say surprisingly
because a lot of those things. It's like through osmosis I know enough, and I'm like, I don't need to sit down for this.
So like I went to go see Titanic when they did the 3D re-release, and I was like, I'm just curious to see how this would be in 3D. I don't think the 3D added much to it, but I just remember by the end of that 3 hours, just like, oh my God, that was actually
really good.
Okay, I get it.
That's funny. No, I've seen like Scream and all those. I love all the Scream films. You know?
Oh, those are absolutely fantastic. Sorry, I was just laughing at a comment because of its intensity, which was, I think it's Ray Day E-Visuals, the friggin' Lion King, bro. WTF, it's amazing. It's literally Hamlet, dude.
Well, it's because I know what it is.
Color me surprised, Bcomp is uncultured swine. God dang.
Yeah, sweet.
Bankley Aoshi will never watch Hellraiser again. Sorry, what were you saying, Joe?
I think Kirby just commented about Lion King 2 deserving a stake in this conversation about sequels. I disagree, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Wasn't it?
Is that the one with Scar's hot son?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I looked you in the eyes. Scar's hot son.
Like I said, I've heard enough about it. Like, enough conversation and all that. In fact, you know, when my kid was born, I literally did the Lion King thing of holding him up in the hospital room.
I've seen most of the big. My grandpa was a big horror guy, so like I just watched a lot of them with him. And like I wouldn't consider myself a big horror person, but when I think back, like I've watched a lot of horror movies. I generally go and see horror movies when they come out. Do I like horror movies?
I had a similar renaissance, and the answer was a resounding yes.
You know what it is? It's not so much the horror films; it's the slasher films. When it gets into the gore and all, that's what like kind of did. But like a thing like literally The Thing. I mean, arguably that's
a perfect movie.
Yeah,
it's arguably a horror film. I guess. Oh, yeah. I absolutely love that movie. Like, that movie is awesome. You know what I mean?
Got a young Keith David. Can't go wrong.
Oh, I mean.
Oh, my God. Keith David and Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. That beard, pizza chef.
Yeah.
That entire movie. Wilford Brimley.
Yes.
Cold, locked in a shed, deadpanning to the camera. I would like to go back inside. Gets me every single time. And I've told the story a billion times before, but I'll tell it again because I love it.
Sure.
I went to go see The Thing in a 75 millimeter print because it was like The only one that exists, it's pink because it was left in the sun, but they initially thought that it didn't exist at all anymore. Okay. Fun fact, the man that I would marry that is now my husband was also in that audience.
Nice.
We were literally sitting like on across aisles and had no idea that we were there. But it was a double feature with another John Carpenter movie called Starman.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That was not Jeff Bridges.
Also Kurt Russell now? Or was it Jeff Bridges?
I think it's Jeff Bridges. It's one of the burly men that Carpenter loves. And I guess there were more people there for Starman than The Thing because they asked, has anybody here seen The Thing before? And 75% of the audience raised their hand.
What?
So, yep. So I got to watch 75% of that room react to that scene for the first time. Oh. And it was like I went back in time. This next question is from Travis Guag. What movie do you wish had a sequel?
Ooh.
Well, y'all think I know my answer.
I know my answer, but go ahead.
I wish The Nice Guys had a sequel.
I absolutely effing love that movie. Back to my Shane Black Lethal Weapon fun right there.
Yep.
Love that movie.
I wish The Nice Guys had a sequel. I wish we could see them still solving mysteries as an established detective team.
Supposedly that was written as like a pilot script for TV.
And I would have watched that as a TV show.
100%.
Same.
I'm going to do this. This is a shout out to one of our EPs, but Sneakers. If you have not seen Sneakers with...
I haven't even heard of it.
Oh, it's a heist sort of like film, for lack of a better word, but it's Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, Dan Aykroyd, River Phoenix, Mary McDonnell, Ben Kingsley. It is one of the best like just heist films of the 90s, and it got buried because it has the worst title ever. But it's basically about a bunch of guys or a group of people who are paid to break into places to prove that you can't break into places. And, of course, it turns into a whole political thriller from there. And it is funny and heartwarming and just a great film. And if you haven't seen it, in fact, next time if I ever get on this again, I'm gonna see if I can bring that on.
You should.
But it should have been, though, a series of films. They should have followed these guys or this group of characters and just done just more and more sequels, like following them, just breaking into places and doing stuff like that.
Just giving them some kind of high-stakes 70s era mystery to solve. And also, quick shout-out to our EP, Andrew Zilch, who just threw in School of Rock. That's another one I would have loved to see a sequel for it. That's actually the first movie that I used the commentary track on, and I did it over and over and over again. I was a compulsive child.
I would say, yeah, this is one of those things where I'm like, I'm blanking out right now, but as soon as it's over, I'm like, oh, this one.
Yeah.
But first that comes to head, I would love to see like another movie in the world of Brick, Ryan Johnson's
Oh my God,
right.
yes!
I know
Teenage High School Mystery.
Yeah, I know we're kind of getting that like,
Knives Out,
vibe, Knives Out, but just sort of that world, that style. Like I want more of that. I was obsessed with that movie.
Let me tell you a movie called The Last Jedi. You may not have heard about this. Little indie film.
That's a movie I want an actual sequel to.
Yeah.
An actual continuation of that story.
Yeah.
That locker scene where he opens it as that kid is chasing him in Brick lived in my brain for years. I loved Brick. And there's an interesting comment in here. This is from, I didn't even read your name out loud the first time. This is from Brian B. Dyan. Do you think there's any comedy sequels that are better than the first? Everyone thinks that I'm being facetious, and I'm not. The entire internet knows that I'm not. It's Paddington 2. It's
a good movie.
It's better.
It's a great movie.
I literally just, because my kid's now at that age where so we now are watching all the Paddington both the Paddington movies and the Paddington CG series. I believe like 16 episodes with the same voice actor. I absolutely love Paddington 2. Like, it is funny. It is heartwarming. Hugh Grant is having a ball in there.
Good time.
Oh, it's great. Not that Paddington 1 is bad, but yeah, Paddington 2 improves upon everything with Paddington.
I just saw somebody call the sequel to Brick 2 another brick in the wall. Hey, you start writing things for me. That comment moved fast, so I couldn't credit it, but that's a great one. Are there any comedy sequels that you're like, this eclipses the first one for me?
I'm literally blaming. For some reason, I don't know why I keep thinking of Dumb and Dumber, but I hate all the sequels to that. I just love that movie. I can't think of one. I would like, I'm trying to think, though.
Well, I mean, there's a Back to the Future.
Was that a comedy? I mean, it has funny moments, but I'm thinking like...
Yeah, like thinking of like a comedy. Yeah.
I feel like there's one I watched recently, and I was surprised at how good it was, and now I'm spacing out on it.
The worst part about this is I'm going to get up to my desk in about 5 minutes and go, son of a...
Yeah,
I knew it!
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, the brick in the wall comment was from Vlox Scripter.
Good job. Good job.
I would throw into that contention Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know if it's better than the original, but I think it's pretty dang good.
I think I have like a little bit more fondness for it. A, because I love the actors. B, because I think Alex Winters deserves more in this life. And C, I love the actors that they cast as their children.
Yeah.
Because they really do a fantastic Bill and Ted impression. And I like that it builds off of the idea of be excellent to each other in a way that, I don't know, it feels like the kind of thing that can only exist after like years of affection for a piece of media.
Yeah.
All right.
Not technically a comedy all out, but I'd say Bad Boys 2 is better than Bad Boys 1.
Bad Boys 2 is better than Bad Boys 1. It's funnier too.
Yeah. So there you go, chat.
What about Army of Darkness?
Oh, okay. Actually, I have such a hard time with this one because the thing is, I really love Evil Dead 2,
Evil Dead 2's
but
great.
I might like Army of Darkness more than I like Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it's the one that's the least horror and the most fantasy, but Army of Darkness might be my favorite of the three.
I think, yeah.
Adam's Family Values was really good.
There it is.
That was a great, because that was the Joan Cusack one, right?
Yes, it was. Oh, wait, no. Joan Cusack was the first one.
She's the first one?
Wait, Joan
Now I
Cusack.
gotta look it up.
Wait, Joan Cusack, and then the second one, I think Joan Cusack is Adam's. No, Joan Cusack is Adam's Family Values, and I should know that because I wrote a thing for CBS about it. I'm so sorry.
So that is a sequel then, because Adam's Family and then Adam's Family Values.
Yep.
I was a ballerina Barbie.
I'll be the victim all your life.
I just want to shout out in the chat, Pootie Tang does need a sequel. I did not see the name of who wrote that,
Joked.
but I agree.
Oh my God! Yes, it is the one with Joan.
I think I would argue
she's the nanny.
Yeah.
For Hubert.
Yes, because she becomes a love interest for Uncle Fester. That's the whole.
Yeah.
Yes.
There it is. The first one was Fester's mom was the villain.
Yeah, I think,
Fester's fake mom.
Yes.
All right. So thank you so much to the both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Today.
Yeah.
This was an absolute blast. I'm going to really quickly tease what the next topic for next week is. I'm doing a slight pivot since we're still building out this show, and just with the topics specifically. Lately we've been doing very specific things like fantasy and sequels, but I wanted something that would have a little bit more longevity and also feel kind of like the way it used to be at a video store, where you would more than anything give a mood for what you're in, and not I want something scary, but like I'm feeling this type of way today. So the theme for next week is a movie you watch when you want revenge, and we're going to have Emily and Jake on that one, and the movie that we're all watching together is RRR Rise Roar Revolt. Yes, I'm making the two of them watch a 3-hour movie. The movie is fantastic. It's streaming on Netflix. So the theme for next week in celebration of Batman Day is a movie you want to watch when you want revenge.
I heard that movie's insane.
It's fantastic.
In a good way. I've heard it's
bonkers.
insane.
Zipper watched it and then came to work the next day like, Joe, you gotta watch this movie. It's 3 hours, and it sounds delightful.
Everyone knows I am a baby about anything that goes past 90 minutes. So if I'm willing to sit for 3 hours, it's because it's great. And Live and Sleazy put John Wick for the win, and that's obviously going to be my pick because Emily has literally watched me watch that movie when I want vengeance. Where can the people find the both of you, and what do you got coming up?
I'm just chilling on Xplay, doing the streams. I'm working on some VODs. Yeah, I think there'll be fun surprises, so I don't quite want to give what they're about.
Fair enough.
Then we will keep it aloof.
Yeah.
You can find me on the Twitters at the Bcomp. I usually just post stupid jokes that I think are funny, or comic panels that I think are funny, or just promote Fresh Ink, which is another show that I help
Great
out
show.
with. Thank you. Yeah, we do that. And then, of course, watch the Big Zoo show of Attack of the Show. Love it.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Very excited to do more of these. Please join us in the Discord, in the Reddits. Talk about the movies that you've seen that you've loved, that you haven't loved, suggestions that you might have for movies under the category of things you want to watch when you want revenge. And y'all want to give a little shamrock on the outro?
Is it 53?
It's 53 days.
53.
I'm counting. That's my wedding anniversary.
You got married on Halloween?
Yes, I did.
Hell yeah.
I eloped to Vegas, got married with an Elvis dressed as Satan, and my husband was Dracula.
You love
wow. You really do.
I am committed. So, 1, 2, 3.
53 days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 53 days till Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Thank you for joining, everyone. I love you. Be excellent to each other. Bye.
Bye.
Later, y'all.